Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today I want to talk about Glashütte Original. This is the German watch company located in a region called Saxony in the more eastern part of Germany. Originally they were founded, well it's a little mixed up. Adolph Lange, Ferdinand Adolph Lange, in 1845, with a loan from the Saxony government, started a watch business in the town of Glashütte. And they made watches. That's pretty much it. And throughout the years, they developed watches in different kinds. They started with pocket watches, and later on, they made wristwatches as well. During the Soviet occupation, before the reunification of Germany, they collectivized the watchmakers in Glashütte, and they made something with the initials that came out to be the initials GUB. After the reunification, and about, I think it was 1994, they privatized the GUB, and this was the roots of Glashütte Original. Now, one of the interesting things to me was during the Soviet era, they made some very interesting watches, and throughout its history, the watchmakers in Glashütte had a lot of innovations in mechanical watches. Okay, so let's take a look at the Glashütte watch company. And oh, by the way, too, in 2000 they were bought by Swatch, and so they're now owned by Swatch. They bought them as a luxury watch company to join with Breguet and Blancpain, which were their two other luxury watch companies. All right, so this watch right here, to me, had always been, when I think of Glashütte Original, it was the Panamanic moon phase. Now, the reason I think of that is because I know some people who have one and they absolutely love them. And so many people see it, I say, oh, that's a great watch. And I agree. I love the looks of that watch. And so it's sort of emblematic of the first line of watches in their collections called the Pano. Now, the Pano, Glashütte Original Pano, have a lot of different submodels. They have a tourbillon, they have a Panamanic counter, they have a Pano Reserve, they have an inverse one where they turn it upside down and show the regulator at the front. A lot of really interesting ones that they have in their Pano collection. The second group of watches was the one, actually, I got to know Glashütte Original when I saw the Senator. I almost bought one. And to me, this is sort of the emblematic Senator. Not for everybody, but for me it was. Here was this one that had the Roman numerals, and it was clean, but it wasn't Bauhaus. All right, it wasn't like Nomos or some of these other ones, but there was a certain style. It wasn't as elaborate as a lot of the Swiss or the French. And by the way, I wore my watch with the Roman numerals, my Vacheron Constantin 1972, in honor of this. It's the only one I have with Roman numerals. And to tell you the truth, I'm not crazy about Roman numerals because I think they're hard to read, but they look really good sometimes, and I think this is one example where they do. Now, there are 19 different models of the Senator. I had no idea there were so many. They have tourbillons, they have chronometers, regulators, perpetual dates, all different kinds in the model of the Senator. What I wanted to do, I wanted to sort of show you a few of them here, and they have the same kind of thing. Now, I found one with Arabic numbers that I happen to really like. It has a green sort of what I call depression glass green, light green, beautiful, with the black face. That's the only one I found in Arabic numbers. Most of them are either hour markers or in the Roman numerals. And I have a lot of different kinds, perpetual calendars, lunars, skeletonized. There's a lot of just very interesting ones. And by the way, too, as we're going to see, all of the mechanical watches have in-house movements. All right, let's take a look at this next group. Now, the next one has two. I had to have two emblematic watches because in the vintage collection there are two styles. One's called the 60s and one's called the 70s. Now, you know, remember, this is during this period, what was called GUB at the time was part of this under the Soviet rule, and East Germany had a pretty rough guy who was running the show then. But Glashütte came out with some, even during that period, they came out with some very interesting watches. Now, these watches have some of the style, but believe me, they don't have the same movement. The movements that they have in these modern watches they're beautiful. They really are, and they deserve the name high horology. But they got this neat style, and so they wanted to include that too. So vintage is the third style that Glashütte has. Now the next one was a surprise to me because I really didn't know about it. I thought, you know, sometimes watch companies will have a couple ladies' watches, but not Glashütte. They got a lot of them, and not only do they have a lot, they have varieties and a lot of, I guess, some really elegant things that they're doing. This particular one, I thought, oh, this is emblematic of the ladies' watches. It's called the Serenade, and the Serenade was sort of one of the two main ladies' watch models they have. This one has a mother of pearl dial background, diamonds around on the bezel, diamonds for hour markers, gold Roman numerals where the diamonds aren't. And then at the bottom, they have a pretty good size date window, and they want people to know the date. So they put their big date window. Now, this is a fairly formal, elegant watch, but they figured, well, if you're going to have a watch, you should be able to tell the time and the date, and they certainly do it with this one. But I think they've done a really pretty job here. And looking at the other ones in the ladies combination, they have two, or actually one model called the Panoramic Luna for the moon phase. And that's pretty much a smaller version of the men's watch of the same name. All right, the other one, the Serenade, the one we just saw was Serenade, but they have another one called the Pavonina. The Pavonina has a cushion-shaped dial on it, or case, and all different kinds of different bracelets that you have. You can have them in gator, metal, the metal of the watch, either, or you can have some precious metal. The one pictured there are in gold, but so are the cases. You have all kinds of things. They also have like a silk linen, almost like a bow kind of a strap for women. And all different kinds of combinations. The simplest Serenade and Pavonina are simply stainless steel, and then they have all the way to diamonds and gold. So you really get you get a wonderful combination there. All right, now the last thing I want to talk about is that here you have a company owned by Swatch, and Swatch also owns ETAs. But the one thing that you got to respect Swatch for is that the last thing that Swatch ever wants to do is to have any of its now that they own Harry Winston, any of their brands with ETA movements, all right, even though they own ETA, because that's somewhat associated with rather than high horology, more something that bargain basement horology. All right, so they make there are 33 different movements that Glashütte makes of mechanical movements. So there are two that they use in some of the women's watches that are quartz. And both of the quartz models, even though they're manufactured by Glashütte, are based on ETA designs for quartz. Okay, but everything else is based on either the tradition of Glashütte before they became Glashütte Original, back to the old GUB days, or even before that, because this company had a lot of innovations. They were high horology before that term became popular. They're German and they're not Swiss, and yet they're doing all of these really amazing things. So if you pick one up, if you get one, the one thing you're not going to have, a mechanical one, you don't have to worry if it's an ETA movement, because I can tell you it's not. I went through all of them, and none of them are ETA based. And there are companies, as we know, that they'll have their own movement name on it, and it turns out, well, hey, it's really an ETA. Okay, so they make their own movements. They make a variety of ones. Here you have the skeletonized one. You have one that's reversed with the regulators up on top with those beautiful swan neck. They have a sort of a double swan neck on that. And then they have a flying tourbillon. And the flying tourbillon was developed in Glashütte. And like I said, this is where things get complicated, is that when they became part of Glashütte Original, and before that, when they were part of GUB, and then even before that, when they were all of these independent watchmakers and some kind of cooperative Glashütte. All right. Well, listen, I'd like to hear what you have to say about this, what you think of the brand. If you have one, I'd like to get your feedback on it, or say, hey, this is great, or this is not something you want. From my experience, both with the users and the watch, people really like this watch, and it's a very affordable way into good high horology. Okay, like I said, leave comments. I'd love to hear your comments. And if you like, you may subscribe. And on Sunday, we're going to have what I hope will be a very interesting video for you. Until then, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.